Jai Sriman
Jai
Jai Sriman Jai Sriman. I pay my obeisances to my spiritual master, Srimad Jagat Guru Sudarshan Acharya Ji Maharaj. I pay my obeisances to Lord Sri Ramanuj. I pay my obeisances to the Purva Acharyas. I pay my obeisances to the 12 Alvas. I pay my obeisances to Mother Lakshmi. And I pay my obeisances to Lord Sriman Narayan. I welcome all of you here physically at the Sri Narayan Dham on this rainy Sunday. I welcome those that's watching this discourse locally, nationally and internationally, and I welcome in advance those that's going to be watching this discourse when it is posted in YouTube and the various groups from around the world. Today is the 1st of November 2020, and once again highlighted in the news yesterday in France, a priest was shot dead at close range. Sorry, not shot dead, shot. He was in critical condition last night when I last heard the news. He was apparently shot with a shotgun. At the point of my hearing the news, no one had claimed responsibility, and I don't want to infer, but currently there is an ongoing battle between the French president and various Islamic groups from around the world. And this has emanated in what we would call religious warfare and religious intolerance. Prior to all of this taking place, our institution embarked, due to impact that we experienced locally here in South Africa, we embarked on a topic on oneness. And since embarking on this topic on oneness, I have comprehensively broken down to the very basics that at the core, notwithstanding geographical, cultural, traditional and religious differences, all human, the human body at the core is identical. This would infer that the human bodies can be grouped in a category of one. The human bodies can be grouped in a category of one. It is this one which we have termed as oneness, and we are using this scientific truth, which is found in the earlier scriptures called Vedas, which means knowledge. Vedas means knowledge. The very earliest knowledge that was eked out by the very earliest scientists, called rishis, munis and sages. These scientists eked out the scripture through communicating with the Supreme Being, and this scripture, which is eternal, was communicated by the Supreme Lord in the hearts of the rishis, who subsequently communicated this eternal knowledge to their disciples. And this knowledge was passed on since creation, since the very beginning of creation, was passed on through the disciplic succession until 5,000 years ago, when it was reduced to writing by an advent or incarnation of the Supreme Lord Himself, Veda Vyas. Veda means knowledge, Vyasa means compiler. So the compiler of the knowledge is named and titled Veda Vyas. In this current 5,000 years, we have evidence, scientific evidence, and when I say scientific evidence, evidence found through excavations, archaeological excavations, tested through various methodology, and then given out to the world, that the earliest civilization in this cycle, in this current cycle, was at the Indus Valley. At the Indus Valley, which more excavations and more proof will show not only 5,000 years, but going into hundreds of thousands of years. As we get more intelligent through material science, then material science will uncover through satellite imaging and radar and X-ray more and more evidence of civilization, which they are calling the cradle of mankind. Currently, scientists have determined that the cradle of mankind is in Africa, and it predates 70,000 years. However, if we peruse through the Vedic information, then the cradle of mankind would be in Bharat. Cradle of mankind would be in Bharat, popularly known as Bharat Varsa. However, I'm sure in my lifetime, or in the lifetime of my discourse, even when I'm gone, this evidence will surface, as all other evidences have surfaced already. Pass my phone. With the charger. So we've embarked on this sensitive topic of religious intolerance or tolerance, but our dimension in pursuing this topic is connected to oneness. So if we take religious tolerance and we equate it to oneness, then it would infer that the dimension that we are expounding is on the similarities of the various religions. We are not concerned with the differences. The truth lies in the similarities, and the differences will lie in human error. And when I say human error, it would mean not the prophets who expounded various religions through various time frames, but it would mean us, the human, trying to understand the various verses in different context. When the context changes, then the synthesis also changes, doesn't it? Doesn't it? So we have to forget about the differences, for the Supreme Lord should live in the similarities, don't you think? The supreme truth will come from the absolute truth, don't you think? It's all a matter of perception. It depends on your eyesight. A red leaf might look pink to some, orange to some, maroon to some, but the leaf in fact is red. The absolute truth of the color of the leaf is red. So your differences in the color will not change the truth that the leaf is red. All of you understand? So when you take a verse, many scholars have taken many verses from all scriptures and they've suited it to suit a bias on their mindset. All of you understand? So if you take a verse spoken by God and suit it to fulfill a certain bias, what bias means? You want this verse to suit your understanding instead of you understanding the verse. Instead of you understanding the verse as it was expounded by the Supreme Lord or the prophets, you want to change the verse to suit you or a particular group of people at a particular time. All of you understand? So we want, through these discourses, to remove all of these seemingly different contexts, so that what is currently happening between France and Islam do not happen again. We want to simmer down religious intolerance, because the very reason for this intolerance is the understanding of the verses in or out of context. So we need to find out, before we pursue this topic of religious tolerance in its current dimension, what is the purpose of religion? What is the purpose of religion? Why would we want to have religion? Dham, why would we want to have religion? You think so? What is the aim of religion?
Discipline.
Discipline? What type of discipline? We want to set up a framework of moral and ethical standards for whom? Ourselves where? For ourselves personally and for our community as a whole and for society at large. Don't we? Because when we want to set up anything with ethical or moral values, then what do we want to tap into? In your home, what is everyone looking for? Peace. We're looking for peace in various material manifestations, isn't? But ultimately we're looking for peace. The reason all of you come to satsang is to tap into the reservoir of peace that is within the consciousness of this environment, and you want to take a few milliliters of this peace with you on your way home, don't you? You want this peace to start growing like a creeper in your house, don't you? This peace that you feel here. As soon as satsang is over, who runs away? I cut my discourses as short as possible so that you all may leave as quick as possible. But does anyone leave as quick as possible? Why? Because it's peaceful. It is peaceful. You want to swim in this peace for as long as you can. And that is why we have created religion, so that we can live within the parameters of ethical and moral values. And when you belong to ethical and moral values, then you connect to a higher being. And whichever religion you belong to, that higher being will become your God of choice. But the common factor is peace. So religion, the aim of religion is for you to induce peace from a moral and ethical structure which will be named your religion. How do you apply yourself to extract this peace from this structure called religion? Through worship. Through worship. So the aim of a religion should be to confer peace upon you when you communicate to the reservoir of the peace, which is a supreme being that is within the parameters of this framework which you are calling religion, so that you can induce peace through a formality called worship. So how do you worship? What is worship? Sita, what is worship? I heard you telling people I've been worshipping all my life. What is worship? Sita? I heard you telling people you've been worshipping all your life, and you worship so much that the Lord of your understanding ran away.
Worship in many ways. It can be you listen to discourses, or you sing a song for the Lord. Listen to the Vedas. All that is a form of worship.
Okay, so worship is a verb, and it means to have or show a strong feeling of respect and admiration for God. To go to a religious ceremony and to socialize and worship as a group. So the mosques were built to worship God. The churches were built to worship God. The ashrams were built to worship God. The temples were built to worship God. The synagogues were built to worship God. All these different religions have a central place for worship. Now, what must be your mental state for worship? What must be your mental state for the purposes of worship? I'm not going to give you the answer, I'm waiting for the answer. what must be your state of mind to worship?
You must have a divine mind.
Be at peace with yourself.
Yes. When you worship, who you want to connect to? The highest living entity. The highest living entity. What must be your character? What must be your mode when you want to worship the highest being? Must be in submission. You must be in submission. What does submission mean?
Give yourself.
To surrender. To surrender to who? To a higher being. When you surrender, what happens to your attributes, both negative and positive? Neutral? Neutralize. When you are at the point of worship, which is your medium of worship?
Deity.
From where will you get information how to worship? Through your scriptures of your religion. Through the scriptures of your religion. So basically, worship, the definition of worship in all religion is the same. Definition of worship in all religion is the same. You have to submit during worship to a higher or the highest being in your religion. Submission to God in Arabic means Islam. Submission to the will of God in Arabic means, you understand? Worship. Submission through worship in Arabic means Islam. In Sanskrit means Sanatan Dharma, and in English means Christianity. In Hebrew means Judaism. All of you understand? Can you see the oneness in meaning and in act itself? The act itself. The act of worship in itself is the same in all religion. Can you see it? Is it absolute? Is it scientific? Does it make sense? Is it logical? Do you have to have a doctorate to understand this discourse? Do you have to go to university to understand oneness? You have the internet. You use the internet for various things, don't you? You can use the internet now to learn about all other religions. And if you learn about all the religions, because currently Wikipedia is the modern Vedas. Wikipedia is the modern Vedas. So use Wikipedia because it's at your fingertip. The Vedas are also encapsulated within the information sphere of the Wikipedia. So sift out and experience yourself oneness through knowledge. Experience oneness through knowledge. And it doesn't matter from which culture, which tradition, which religion you belong. When you have this information on hand, forget the differences. The absolute truth is in the similarities. The absolute truth is in the similarities. The differences will be the error in interpreting out of context. So, Lord Sri Krishna informed Arjuna in his conversation during the epic battle at Kurukshetra that the information that he was given him through the Bhagavad Gita, he was given it to him again. Again, because this information was lost. This information was lost. Knowledge that is eternal cannot be lost in its own aspect. It can be lost in the minds and functions of the human aspect, where the human has forgotten the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. It was for that reason 5,000 years ago the Bhagavad Gita was spoken again. When it was spoken at the battle of Kurukshetra, it was spoken in an environment of war between two warring factions. But when it was spoken prior to this, it was spoken to Visvasan. And Visvasan, not Nirvasan. Not Nirvasan, Visvasan, who is the sun god. Most probably Nirvasan was in proximity of the sun god and he got burnt. But not Nirvasan, Visvasan. All of you understand? Visvasan. And when you trace the time scale, then the Bhagavad Gita was spoken many million years ago. And if it was spoken to Visvasan, the sun god, then it was not spoken during a battle. I want you to understand this very, very clearly, and this is where the scriptures are getting, people are emulating violence from scriptures when that violence was only supposed to be at a particular place and a particular time. And people are taking those violent verses from the scriptures and they are using it to promote violence today, as if those events that happened in the scriptures many, many years ago that we should interpret that violence and use it today. All of you understanding? So when the Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Visvasan millions of years ago, it was not on a battlefield. But for it to be spoken for the benefit of mankind, then it was spoken at the battlefield of Kurukshetra. That does not mean that the context of the Bhagavad Gita and the verses are violent. That today, for you to practice the Bhagavad Gita, you have to do it in between a war. It does not mean that. All of you understand? So similarly, there are verses in the Quran when Prophet Muhammad started getting scribes to write down his revelations. It started with peace and it ends in violence. So if you go on the internet, you'll see in the Quran the peace verses and the sword verses. Peace verses and the sword verses. And then you'll get many commentators, depending on their bias, they will say Prophet Muhammad was very peaceful in the beginning, but he became very arrogant towards the end, if they are interpreting with bias. But was there a battle that Prophet Muhammad was involved in? Do you know? At Mecca? Was there a battle for Prophet Muhammad to bring Islam into existence? Do you know, Khatija? Alright. This is why I'm saying go and research. You have Wikipedia. Research. So similarly, a scripture was spoken, or an aspect of a scripture was spoken during the battle of Kurukshetra, but we are not taking this literally. We are not taking this literally to enforce the Bhagavad Gita through violence, notwithstanding it was in the midst of violence itself. And similarly, many of the verses, violent verses in the Quran, would mean that which Prophet Muhammad had to experience himself, which his devotees, within this 30 years of revelation. Don't you think? If the substratum of Islam is peace, if the substratum of Sanatana Dharma is peace, then that war in the battle of Kurukshetra, where this Bhagavad Gita was churned, means that that war was only relevant for that time at that place. And don't you think similarly that whatever violence is in the Quran, then it would be only for that point in time where Prophet Muhammad himself was involved in a battle. Like Lord Sri Krishna was involved in a battle, although passively, he gave his army to the opposition and he gave himself to Arjuna So he was involved in a battle, wasn't he? Was he not? Now can you, to interpret the Bhagavad Gita, Jai Bhai, can you tell Lord Krishna, come on your side and take his army and give it to your enemy? And then fight. But if you read the Bhagavad Gita, that's what the Bhagavad Gita is about.
Yes,
Is it not?
Technically, you're fighting your own soldiers, your own side.
I'm saying, isn't this what the Bhagavad Gita is about? If you read it on the surface. If you read it on the surface. So also, if you read the Quran on the surface, then you're going to miss the esoteric meanings. Esoteric means deeper meanings. Okay? And I stated this is a sensitive topic. Okay? Today I'm using Islam and Sanatan Dharma. And the next discourse may be Judaism and Sanatan Dharma. And the next topic may be Islam and Judaism, you understand? For no particular reason am I using Islam today other than to synthesize the various scriptures, the similarities in various scriptures, so that we can achieve oneness. Then we have to come to home realities. What does home realities mean? The truth should start at home, and oneness should start at home. And I'll give you an example. Alright? So I have no parents. I have no parents. We are 4 brothers that's still alive. My sister is late. Mataji, her dad is late. She has 5 sisters. One is in Cape Town, one is in Joburg, one is in London, and 2 are here locally. Okay? Her mom is too old to attend satsang. In this context, you don't see my brothers here. Do you see them? You don't see Mataji's sisters here. Do you see them? So as a family now, both on my side and Mataji's side, there is no oneness in what we are practicing. There is no oneness. Where is it starting? Right here, everything starts at home. So Mataji and I have been awarded this mission, but notwithstanding the fact our blood relatives, we have many nieces and cousins and a whole lot of people, but you do not see them here because they are not supporting the oneness coming from the family, biological family itself. Can you witness? So can you see how difficult oneness is? Even starting at the very core. At the very core, at the root. Then you notice that my guru is Swami Sudarshan Acharya Ji Maharaj. Who's my guru? Swami Sudarshan Acharya Ji Maharaj. Then you'll notice in Durban itself, there are 2 branches by two different sets of people who belong or claim to be devotees, not disciples, devotees of Swami Sudarshan Acharya Ji Maharaj. I want you to understand this aspect very, very clearly. Both are not very far away. One is in Westville and one is in Durban. This is the first fully fledged inaugurated ashram of Guruji in South Africa. This is the first fully fledged inaugurated ashram of Guruji in South Africa and Africa as a whole. It was inaugurated as per verdict injunctions. We just didn't open a place here and open a place there. As per verdict injunction of the Sri Sampradaya. The person who inaugurated this ashram, him and his guru inaugurated Guruji's ashram, Sri Siddhartha Ashram in Faridabad, India. And I visited that guru in Hyderabad in 2018. Chinna Jayar Swami. So if you go on the internet, you'll see that Chinna Jayar Swami and a group of his disciples inaugurated and did Murti Stapna at the Sri Siddhartha Ashram in Faridabad, India, whilst Guruji was alive. In his last month, April 2007. April 2007, Chinna Jaya Swami and his disciples went to Faridabad, India, and in the presence of Guruji inaugurated his ashram. On May 22nd, the same year, Guruji left his mortal coil. Then I went to Hyderabad, India. I stayed for 6 days or 5 days in Swami Chinna Jayar's ashram in 2018. In 2019, his disciple who inaugurated Sri Siddhartha Ashram with him flew to Durban, South Africa, and on the 5th of May 2019, he inaugurated the Sri Narayan Dham and did Murti Stapna for all the deities that are present here. In terms of spiritual legality, how bona fide is this ashram? How bona fide is this ashram? How authentic is this ashram? 100%. Why? I didn't get one Maharaj or Pandit who buys his scriptures from Maharaj's prayer goods and come and do an inauguration here. Did I do that? I brought a Pancharatra Agama Pandit, which is required by the Sri Sampradaya to do any inauguration of an ashram. So I went 100% as per scriptural injunctions. There are here in Durban. Aya, how many devotees of Guruji you think there are here in Durban, Mr. Maharaj?
Quite a bit.
Quite a?
Quite a bit.
Quite a bit. Don't lie. If they claim to be devotees of Guruji, and this ashram has been opened as per scriptural injunctions, shouldn't they be jubilant that their Guru's ashram and satsangs which were held in funny places, now there is a real and a genuine ashram in South Africa belonging to who? Guruji. Don't you think, Mr. Maharaj, that all of them should be here? In its absolute sense, don't you think everyone should be here? Because they are not gurus. Those people that's convening these satsangs are ordinary people on behalf of Guruji, which there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong, all right? Because I myself was in both these branches. I myself was in the Westville branch on Thursdays and town branch on Sundays. So I went to both the branches. Now, if there was oneness practiced, then all those devotees, instead of having pride, envy, and jealousy. Pride, envy, and jealousy is stopping them to come to this ashram, because this Guru is only 7 years old. And they are 20 years old, and I think now 25 and 35 they've been having satsang in the same place, same environment, same people. No change. Alright? And then I just learned from nowhere. I was part of them, and now we have this. You understand? So what is stopping them? Pride, envy, and jealousy. And who? You think their followers are restrained from coming here, or you think they've been restrained by their leaders? Their leaders. And the leaders have restrained them because they could not achieve, because in the Sri Sampradaya, you have to become a disciple. You have to become a disciple, because ultimately the Sri Sampradaya is the Guru Parampara. If you don't want to leave your bad habits, and if you want to be with Guruji, and if you want to make a show of being with Guruji with your bad habits, you're not going to move anywhere. You're not going to move anywhere. You understand? You'll be 1 + 1 is equal to 1 all the time. All the time. All of you understand? But if you forsake your bad habits, you submit your bad habits to Guruji and put it at his feet, you leave all your businesses, you leave your wife, you leave your children, you leave your brothers, you leave your cousin, and you say, I am going to take your mission seriously, Guruji, then you would have had ashram long time ago. You would have had ashram long time ago. Now, when I did all of what I've just stated now, Guruji gave me the opportunity of having an ashram. Then don't have pride, don't be envious, and don't have jealousy. bring your following. If you love Guruji, bring your following and put them at Guruji's feet, because this is the bona fide ashram of Guruji in South Africa. All of you understand? Because there is no oneness, and I'm trying to show you, not my disparity with these other individuals. It's neither here nor there, but within the context of oneness. I can't experience oneness biologically between my family and Mataji's family. It is difficult. Then I can't experience oneness with Guruji's disciples in Durban, South Africa. It is difficult. And how difficult will it be for us to experience oneness in Judaism, for us to experience oneness in Christianity, and for us to experience oneness in Islam, when we can't do it right at the very core. All of you are understanding. And it is for this reason, with my personal examples to you, that this humanity of the world has fractured. Humanity of the world on the world stage has fractured. But it is not the end of the world, because gurus take the birth timeously to bandage all the fractured religions and bring them together. It is a momentous task, but if it is done with sincerity, and if it is done for the right reason, then there is no reason why this discourse cannot become the seed to start the tree of oneness. Jai Shriman. Okay?